Welcome to this GAT Shield overview. GAT Shield is one of GAT Labs' family of tools. It's an audit, reporting, and security Chrome extension for your Google Workspace environment. As is the case with overviews, we won't be going in depth on how every area can be used, but rather giving a general overview of each area's purpose. Before we begin, here are some things you may want to know. GAT Shield can be delegated to non-admin users, allowing them to run audits, analyses, or reports for any given scope, such as user, group, or organization unit. GAT Shield works by pushing either an open or closed UI extension to the domain's Chrome browser. The open user interface allows the user to see their own activity while using the Chrome browser, whereas the closed user interface will display a grey GAT Shield icon that the end user can't access. Let's begin with the dashboard. This will be the first area you see when you launch GAT Shield. The dashboard will give a view summarizing Shield activity for users and alerts. On the left, below the dashboard, you will see the different sections of the tool. Audit and configuration. We'll look through the audit section first. The first area is browsing. When you open an area of the tool, there may be different tabs at the top of the page. We'll be going through each area and tab. In the browsing area, we are in the Data Explorer tab. Here we get a charted view of user activity, denoting site names, their URLs, how long the user was on the site, when they were on the site, as well as any tags. Clicking on the eye icon will present more information. Users can create filters that will show the data they need using the funnel icon in the top right. The Create Filter button will be present in most areas of the tool. And using the Export Data button, you can export the data to a CSV or Google spreadsheet. Now we'll move on to the User Chrome Device Activity tab. This area will show overall browsing activity of a user or Chrome device based on the date. The charts can also be grouped by site or tags by clicking the Show Details drop-down. Next, we have the User Summary tab. Here you can select a time range and scope from the domain to an org unit or classroom to a specific user. In the Chrome Devices Summary tab, you can select the time range and scope for devices browsing activity. The Behavior Flow tab shows how much users move through a selected site. This allows admins to view the user's browsing behavior through a specific website. Like before, you can choose a time range and scope, and then generate the results. Lastly, we have the Cookies tab. This area will show a cookies analysis denoted by domain, count, names, and user. Selecting the eye icon next to each row will present more info. You can also create filters in this area and use the funnel icon to fetch more specific information. That covers the browsing section. Let's move on to the Downloads area. Here we have the Downloads Explorer. This area will report all of the download activity happening on the domain. It will include the URL, the MIME type of the file, the file's name, path, and so on. By clicking the eye icon, you can see more details about the download, as well as the user who downloaded the file. You can also create filters to search for a specific download. All the data presented can also be exported with the Export Data button, like in our previous sections. Next, we have the Extensions area. This area will give an audit of all Chrome extensions, denoted by name, version, permissions, and more. The permission score will rank how high risk an extension is, based on the permissions it asks for. Like in our previous sections, you can click on the eye icon for more details, create a filter, and export any data. Moving on, we have the Searches area. The Searches Explorer tab will give an audit of user searches. It also includes the query word cloud, showing the most commonly used search terms. It will also show what the query was, as well as the search engine it was put in. Similarly to before, you can click the eye icon for more details, create filters, and export any data. Next, we have the Chat section. In the Chats Explorer, you can view an audit of Gmail chat, showing the participants of the chat, how long the chat was going on for, when it started and finished, and more. Just click the eye icon for more information about the chat, and you can create filters and export any data like in our other areas. Moving on, we have the User Device Geo-Reporting section. We'll start with the User Device Explorer. In this area, we can view user devices using the geolocation of users on a real-world map. You can zoom into this map to view where your users' devices are located. Clicking on the eye icon next to each row will present more info. Next, we have the Shield Alerts section. This section presents the triggered alerts defined by the admin in the Alert Rules configuration. alerts will be presented in the columns. You may notice a status column. This status indicates whether an admin has acknowledged the alert. You can acknowledge an alert by clicking the checkmark. You can also update the severity level of an alert from high to low using the Update Severity button. By clicking the eye icon, you can view more details about the alert. You can also show and edit the alert that was triggered. Next, we have the Site Access Events. This section presents the triggered site access events defined in the Site Access Control configuration area. For example, if a user attempts to visit a site that is blocked, it will create an event for that here. You can see details like the URL, the category associated with the URL, the action that took place, the date, and who the user was. You can also click the eye icon for more details or the file icon to view the site access rule. As always, you can use filters to search for a specific site or category. The user activity section will currently redirect you to the browsing section, so we'll go ahead and skip that. Moving on, we have the YouTube section. Here you can see the user's YouTube activity. You'll be shown the title, URL, and the time spent on the site. You can also click the video icon on the right to view the video on YouTube. That covers all of the audit dashboard. Now we'll be covering all of the sections in the configuration dashboard. The configuration dashboard is where an admin can set up and specify GAT Shield's behavior, customize policies, and more. Beginning with General and CIPA. In the General tab, an admin is able to configure the default domain, the user agent, the date format, records per table page, time zone, and import and export date format. Next is the CIPA Compliance tab. If you are allowing children to access your domain, then you need to be CIPA compliant. Here you can enable CIPA compliant features and select the scope. Moving on, we have the Modules section. In this area, an admin can enable or disable the different auditing areas that are shown. Next, we have the Alert Rules section. In this area, an admin can create their alert rules. Alerts can be created from scratch or by selecting templates. You can create alert rules based on type such as file downloads, searches, IP addresses, and more. When an alert rule is created, it will appear in the list with details like its name, its type, if it's active, when it was created, and so on. You can modify an alert rule with the pencil icon. The second option will allow you to export the rule specifications to a JSON file or spreadsheet. The red X button will delete the alert rule. Now we'll move on to the Browsing Tags section. Here, an admin can create and define browsing tags that can be used throughout Shield for reporting. Tag templates are also available. Configured tags will appear in the view with details like its site URL, tags, activity, and more. Like in the previous sections, you can modify the tags using the pencil icon, export tag specifications with the second option, and delete the tag with the red X button. Next, we have the Browsing Cookies section. Here, an admin can create cookies using the Add Cookie button. You can select the name, value, cookie domain, and path. Any created cookies will be listed similarly to the previous sections. In the Cookies Audit log, you can view a log of cookies activity. Moving on, we have Site Access Control. In this section, you'll be able to control which sites your users have access to. On the left, we have the user-defined site access categories. An admin can create categories for sites to block or allow their users from accessing them. By selecting Add a Site Access Category, you'll be able to define a category, choose if it'll be blocked or allowed, add a description, and select a site manually or from a web search. By clicking the arrow icon, the admin can select an action to take place if a user attempts to access a site. This will then move the category to the Active Site Access Rules, where you can view every rule that is currently in effect. You can modify the rules using the pencil icons and remove them with the red X icon. Below, we have the System-Defined Site Access Categories. These are pre-made templates that you can use. You can also use the Site Search button to see if there are any categories that already have a site you intend on creating a rule for. In the Search Access section, you can enable or disable Google Safe Search, as well as Image Safe Search. You can also define what scope will be affected. In the YouTube Access section, an admin can enable Restricted YouTube Mode. You can then choose between Strict Restricted YouTube Access or Moderate Restricted YouTube Access. Next, you can select the scope that will be affected. In the Gmail Access section, an admin can enforce a Gmail restriction. You can select between Allow any Gmail accounts, Allow domain Gmail accounts, or Block personal Gmail accounts. In the Chat Hangouts Access section, You can disable chat and Hangouts. You can also disable Meet. By setting a time restriction, you can choose when the rule will be active, as well as the scope. In the Zoom access section, you can disable Zoom as well as block Zoom chat. Set a time restriction like in the previous section, and also define the scope. Next, we have the porn blocking section. Here an admin can enable porn blocking and adjust the level of the filter strictness and scope. In monitoring ranges, an admin can change the scope for where Shield is active. In the networks monitored area, you can specify which networks will be monitored. If you leave these blank, GAT Shield will collect data for all networks. Below we have the users monitored area, where you can select or type an email for the users that will be monitored. Leaving this blank will make GAT Shield collect data for all users. And in the Chrome devices monitored area, you can do the same for your Chrome devices. IP mapping can be set using the Add a Mapping button, or it can be imported or exported. You can also exclude any private IPs at the bottom. Next we have login control. Here an admin can control who logs into the domain from Shield protected devices. You have a variety of options to control logins, such as a time window, a login area using geolocation, idle timeouts, and more. You can also select the scope for who will be affected by these settings. Next is the scheduled reports section. This section keeps tabs of all scheduled reports configured throughout GAT Shield sections. The reports will be listed here and can even be edited using the pencil icon. You can delete any scheduled report by clicking the red X icon. Finally, we have the Delegated Auditors section. Here an admin can set up delegated auditors to have access to designated areas of the tool. Auditors can be set by clicking the Add an Auditor button. All auditors will be listed and their permissions can be edited with the pencil icon. To delete an auditor, just click the X icon. To bulk delete auditors, you can select Bulk Delete. That concludes this GAT Shield overview. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this GAT Labs video, please like and subscribe and ring the bell for regular updates. You can also get a free 15-day trial of GAT Plus by following the link in the description.